Good evening and welcome to the League of Women Voters Presents, brought to you by the Columbia-Boone County League of Women Voters. I'm Jim Robertson, your moderator, and our guests tonight are Sergeant Jill Schlude, the PR officer with the Columbia Police Department, and Lorenzo Lawson, the director of the Youth Empowerment Zone in Columbia. Our topic tonight is youth violence, and we're going to explore a bit about perceptions versus reality, causes, effects, and potential solutions. These two folks have been in the fight, to use maybe an apt or not apt metaphor, but it is a fight against youth violence. Yes. It's in the headlines constantly. It's on a lot of people's minds. As we live in Columbia, we think is a pretty good community, but it's not without its problems. Jill, I'll start with you. The police department has a really immediate role and a kind of sensitive role in anticipating, responding to, and trying to prevent youth violence. What does the Columbia Police Department do to address those problems?
Well, currently we've been trying a little bit different strategies than we have in the past. And of course our primary goal when we get that call or we get that critical incident is to respond and handle the situation and get everyone safe. That's our number one priority. But then what do we do after that? What do we do to ensure that we don't have this happen again, or if we do, that we're better prepared? So it's a lot of trying to assess each incident and then plan for the next one, and hopefully there won't be a next one, but if there is, what we can do about it. One of the initiatives that we began this year was trying to put specific officers in beats, and that would be where they would be for the duration of the next few years, with the idea being that those people would get to know their officers in those beats. There would be a more comfortableness that they could come to those officers with things, and it would be more of a conversation rather than a contact, a law enforcement contact.
Confrontation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a big part of that has been the 2 extra officers that we put in the Derby Ridge neighborhood area and also in the Douglas Park area. And those are 2 of the places we're really trying to focus on to reduce some of these outbreaks of violence that we have had.
Columbia is still a pretty small city. Is it true that the officers who are in the neighborhoods where some of the, no, I don't think there's any one neighborhood that can claim all the violence in Columbia, it's spread, but do the officers know these kids or these young people who are, repeat in situations that they shouldn't be in?
The juvenile detectives that we have definitely know who our repeat offenders are, and they try to work with the investigators. What we're trying to do is, and this initiative just started as far as the geographic policing model we kind of fully instituted on June 10th. The officers went to their new assigned beats. So we're about 30 days into this, with the idea, of course, school's out, so it's a lot easier to encounter the kids just out, hopefully on a day-to-day basis. But we're trying to get them to have contact with the kids in their beat, the parents, maybe get to know whose folks work at night, who might need a little bit of extra supervision in the evenings when mom and dad are away, who are some of the trouble, kids that cause trouble. And, we always say, you can't arrest your way out of a problem. Sometimes arrest is the only option that we have in law enforcement, but many times we can do that along with or in lieu of something else to try to help solve the problem long term. That's really our goal. And that's the key to the new geographic initiative, is how do we solve these problems long term? And to be very honest, we're going to rely very heavily on groups like Youth Empowerment Zone to help us do that.
Great transition, thank you. Lorenzo, you come at the problem from a different direction, but the same problem.
Sure.
Tell us a bit about the Empowerment Zone and how you tackle the problem of youth violence.
Well, the Youth Empowerment Zone, it is really an organization that was birthed and designed strictly to try to bring some solutions to those different problems. What we do is we identify young people that we believe do not want to go down that road. They come from the environment. There's a lot of peer pressure on them to do things, but there are a lot of our young people out there that do want to do the right thing, but there's no resources or things in place to help them. I myself was one of those young person, and I realized that I came in my life to the proverbial fork in the road. And I did want it to go down the right path, but I didn't have anything in place to help me, no mentors. I wasn't able to get a job, and the peer pressure was just overwhelming, where we all got in trouble, made bad decisions. So with the Youth Empowerment Zone, our goal is to be there for these young people when they want to make that change, and to provide some resources that they don't have in their lives or in their household. Most of them come from single parent, no male role models in the home, so we try to provide male role models. They don't come with the necessarily life skills that most middle class two-parent kid come with. So we provide the life skills, and we also, a lot of the youth violence is connected to economical reasons. These kids, if they can't earn money in a proper way, they're gonna earn it in an illegal way. So we provide job opportunities. We partner with other organizations like Job Point to provide job training. We refer young people to them. We know that we are not the catch-all organization. We're a very small organization, and we do what we can, but we try to partner with all the different agencies in the community that are designed to help these young people.
How do you make contact with the kids that are in your group?
Well, at first, my youth development specialists would go where they were. That's one of the things about our program that is unique and different. We don't have traditional hours. We work whenever we need to work. So if my youth specialist got to go and get a signature from a parent at 11 o'clock at night, then that's what he'll do. We used to be out in midnight hoops and out down in the park and different places where they hung out at nighttime and did our recruiting. But now we have been so successful in helping a few that the word have gotten out, and we don't have to recruit. They refer other young people to us, and parents are bringing their kids to us. We have the schools, the homeschool communicator, they refer young people to us. We're partnering with the Division of Youth Service. They refer young people to us. Boys and Girls Town, they bring young people to us. So we don't have a lack of young people coming.
You have a lack of capacity to serve?
Yes, and the reason being is that we recognize that it takes a whole lot of concentrated effort to initiate the change in these young people. And what I'm talking about is we're not looking at trying to get a whole bunch of kids to come and then they fall back into the same pattern because we're not investing the necessary resources and time. Most of them, you're gonna have to, first and foremost, build a relationship with them because they come with a non-trusting factor with adults and that age gap or so forth. And so my youth specialist, that's what he does. He builds a relationship with them first where they trust him. And now we are working on getting back a female youth specialist because we got a lot of females. I was told that one of the fastest growing population in Boone County Jail is young black females. So we working with a lot of those females. And and it takes a lot of concentrated effort and resources to affect the change that we're looking for in these young people. So we keep the numbers down, and the second reason is we don't want to promise them something that we cannot deliver.
Sure.
They have been told things and promised things all through their lives, and never come. A lot of them don't come through, and so we don't want to do that. We want to have a reputation that if we tell them we're going to do something, we do it.
Right. Jill, does the perception match reality? I mean, we read the headlines, and they're pretty stark. You know, 5 people shot in front of Douglas School, those kinds of things. Is violence threatening to overwhelm Columbia?
Well, when you actually look at the hard statistics, and we're very fortunate that we staff a crime analyst now, we're not going up on a bad road. We definitely don't like to see these things happen, but we're monitoring where it's going, and we're not off base from where we were 20 years ago. And given our increased population, that's good news. The problem is things like this happen, and of course they get a lot of attention, and they should, because it's a very tragic thing whenever it happens. So what we try to do is as the police, you try to provide information, and that's one of my jobs, but temper it obviously with a lot of facts. We don't want people to get scared and say, oh my gosh, you can't go downtown, you can't go to Douglas Park, you can't go all these places, because sometimes that's not actually the reality. Many times we find that whether you're talking about juveniles or adults, it's the same 1 or 2% of the people that we're dealing with over and over and over. What we'd like to do with the youth population is early intervention with them. I mean, all the research shows if you can get to the kids early, provide mentors, fill those holes that they're not getting at home for whatever reasons. And we know, we try to be realistic. The police aren't going to solve socioeconomic problems. We're not going to be able to do all those things. I think it's really important that we realize, and I was just listening to Lorenzo talk, and it really made me think even more in depth about it. We all have a niche, we all have a thing that we can do with the kids, but in pieces, it's not really that powerful. But when we all come together, and whether it's, Youth Empowerment Zone, plus Boys and Girls Club, plus Voluntary Action Center, plus Police Department, plus Juvenile Justice, it can be very, very powerful. And I think you're starting to see all those groups come together. And, we just met with folks from Job Point a couple weeks ago, and we learned a lot about what they could do and what services they offer, because sometimes the police are just the middleman. We just deal with the situation and we go, well, we're not going to arrest you, but you definitely need help, but we don't really know how to get you there. So folks like this come in and we can go, we know this person can go here. Job Point can only deal with a certain set of people based on their grant funding, but maybe he can deal with that person. So I think us getting a better grasp as police of what resources are out there and who to pick up the phone and call when we've got that at-risk kid can be really helpful long-term. And a lot of that's just us continuing to have a stronger and stronger relationship.
Is there a better way to facilitate that collaboration? I mean, should there be a...
I've seen in other communities where, and I frankly think it's a really good idea, where they have school staff, they have community groups, they have police, they have juvenile justice, all come together and everybody who needs one more meeting, but they meet once a month and they'll talk about specific kids and where they're at and what kind of help do they need and where are they at in the program, and do we need, does this person need help working on a resume? Do they need a mentor? What do they need? Is it a family issue where there's no father figure in the house, or mom's working 2 jobs and kids are alone at night? And they know the kids and their situations on a very specific and personal basis, and they can much better address the issues and fit kids with programs. And I think I'd like to see us get closer to that. I think we're all just kind of realizing the city's in growing pains. I mean, police are trying to catch up, social services are trying to catch up. We're all kind of in the same boat. So I think if we all row in the same direction, we'll get there a lot faster.
And we initiated the Youth Empowerment Zone along with Urban Empowerment. We initiated the Silence the Violence movement, and that was the purpose of bringing the whole community together because we know that it's going to take the whole community to be able to effectively silence the violence, so to speak. And the police, the United Way, churches, it was all the social services, not all of them, but different entities for the community. And we're still doing that. And we're staying in close contact with the police officers and making sure that we all communicate and see just how to fashion this type of collaboration. Because with me, for instance, you know, I want to know that if there's someone that I think that maybe just being pushed or peer pressure is the reason why this person is doing that, I can talk to an officer and say, listen, you know, I know this kid, you know, we worked with him and I think it's, you know, this problem, even though, you know, sometimes, you know, the law got to just take the law. But yeah, on some of those cases that like she was mentioning, you know, which I think is an excellent idea of them going to these geographic location and walking the beat and getting to know, because that's gonna, I think it's gonna really help.
You know, the criticism, or some criticism I've heard of agents, and nothing specific about the Youth Empowerment Zone or any other agency, but that they're not on the street at the time where kids or young people are hanging out, getting into fights. You know, there may be, the reasons may be joblessness, they may be mental illness in some case, they may be drug related, but where are the social service agencies and the people who want to help? Is there any validity to that criticism, or how do you respond to that?
Sure. I mean, the agency, they have their mission, and their mission is not to be out there doing what the police supposed to be doing. That's not most of these social agents' missions. Now, with the Silence to Violence movement, some of our younger members started what is called the interceptors or interrupters. I forget, interrupters, and that is going to be men, women, and young people together being at these different events at night. They started out at Oakland, because one of the young people said every year when Oakland swimming pool opened up, there'd be a huge fight. So the interrupters was there to try to curtail that and talk to the kids. And it was effective, even though over up under the shelter there was a shooting, but it didn't happen at the pool, and they were doing that. So that, and they are designed to do that. To answer your question, most social agents, even I wouldn't expect my staff to put their life on the line. Sure. On a situation like that, even though my youth development specialist, he'd be out there and he'd get calls from some of our young people when they are at a party and they don't have and something is going down and they need a means transportation to get away. He'll go and pick them up and, you know, and get them out of that situation so they can be safe. But and he does that on his own, you know, because he have built up relationship with these young people. Our biggest problem is we're small, you know, there's only 3 of us, and as we grow, and hopefully we will be able to add more youth development specialists, we'll be out there more often and have more out there, but at this particular time, we can only do so much.
Yep. Jill, how much does the availability of weapons impact violence?
Well, we've seen a lot of gun violence in Columbia recently, and of course I get asked a lot, where do the guns come from? If we could answer that question, we could solve a lot of problems. And unfortunately, you know, it's not like in CSI or in the movies. We can't punch in a serial number and know every place that gun's ever been and go, it's you handed these guns to these kids. It's not always that simple. So,
but am I right that anybody could go out and get a gun just about any time they want?
Well, not only that, but just theft. You know, we do find firearms are obviously a popular thing to steal. We've obviously had a problem with burglaries in Columbia. We find firearms stolen very often. I'm constantly preaching for people to leave firearms in vehicles. That happens fairly often, so we talk about that a lot. Prevention, trying to keep those guns out of people's hands. You know, and we'll have instances where it's more often than not that when we have a firearm-related incident and we recover the firearm, many times we don't ever know where it came from. Sometimes they're stolen, not as often as you would probably think. Sometimes they're defaced, so we don't ever know where they came from. It is an issue. I think it's an issue with them getting into younger and younger people's hands. I think there are some older, more experienced folks that think it's better to give the juvenile the gun because there's less of a penalty, the perception is, or,
So
you know.
they're just holding it.
Sure, or give it to the 15-year-old because the 15-year-old's going to go to JJC and they'll be dealt with a different way than an adult will, which is very true, but they're not thinking about the fact that they've just started that kid down that road that we don't want them to go down.
Yeah. Is there any solution to the weapons problem other than just police work, I guess?
You know, I think it comes down to police work. I think it comes down to getting guns off the streets, trying to recover them. You know, we started doing drug take back. There's jurisdictions that do a firearms take back program. We would definitely be interested in exploring that. It's very successful. Some places you don't ask questions. They just take the firearms back. Many jurisdictions just have a place where a time where you can drop off firearms and ammunition if you don't want them in your house anymore. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe people just don't know what to do with them when they're in the house anymore. It's definitely going to be more, it's not going to go away, and we know that. So we're going to have to find some more creative ways to deal with it.
I know that, you know, the hip-hop culture, it seems to advocate or normalize maybe a certain amount of violence. Is that a factor in these kids' attitudes these days?
I tend to believe it is. And I try to stay as close as possible with listening to them and understanding their mindset. And I think that the hip-hop culture does glamorize violence, especially there's songs out where girl fighting, for instance. And I was told that that's been happening more and more now. The girls are doing all the fighting in the community. And so you know, with young minds, they are very impressionable, and whatever is going in, and subconsciously, they don't know that it's affecting them the way they think and the way they act and so forth and so on. But I believe it have a...
Is it effective to just sit down with them and say, look, this is not reality, and your reality is a lot different than this, and it's going to lead to no good?
No, it's not.
It's not.
Because in their mind, it is their reality.
Yeah.
And that's how they look at it. You know, this is who I am, and you know, and like I tell my staff, we don't tell them to pull their pants up until we form a relationship with them and explain and give them a great reason why we ask them to do that, and that is to get a job. You know, but until we form that is there, and they say, are you trying to change who I am? Where we think that that's a fad or something, but they believe that that's exactly who they are, what they're listening to. They believe that, you know, that's me, you know, this is my reality, and you guys don't want to accept me for who I am, so, you know, now I'm going to rebel.
I guess we all went through that in some way or another when we were young.
I think so.
Maybe we weren't in, or Jill and I at least, weren't in as dangerous a situation as some kids have been, including you, our conversation before the show.
Well, and it's not just hip hop. I mean, the whole media, everything is just, in my opinion, just targeted violence and
Video games.
everything.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, all the movies. I mean, even, you know, when I was coming up, you know, it wasn't no 100 channels, #1, you know, but it seemed like every channel you turn on, there's, like you said, even police where people getting murdered, and it's just violence after violence, and it just seemed to be something that everyone...
So it transcends hip-hop culture, it's just our culture.
At some point, I think it's not real anymore. And then you see the statistics of how many violent acts kids witness on TV by the age of 18, and it boggles the mind sometimes.
Exactly.
But I just had a conversation the other day with my husband, and we were talking about R-rated movies when we were younger versus, you know, I remember when Fast Times at Ridgemont High was, you know, that's rated R. You can't watch that, and now that pales in comparison to what kids can be subject to in an R-rated movie. And I think it's, I don't foresee it going back the other way. So,
okay, lightning round here, because we're going to have to wrap it up. If you were all powerful, what one thing would you do to attack this problem of youth violence? I mean, is it jobs? Is it better teachers? Is it role models? What one thing?
I would say partnerships. The Silence the Violence movement is so powerful. Even if they have 30 members or 300 members, the fact that the police didn't come up with that. That wasn't our idea. We didn't come to them and say, hey, this sounds like a great idea, print t-shirts. The community came up with that on their own. And when the folks that want to cause problems see the community and the police coming together and moving in the same direction, that's a really hard train to derail.
That's some powerful, that's good.
And I think that's going to be the key going forward.
Lorenzo?
Well, my one focus is jobs and economics, you know, and that's including education. You know, whatever we can do, just need to be able to do more. We have been very effective in doing it, but we need to be able to do more, and to do more, it costs more. And that's been our biggest challenge, is not having the funding to be able to do more, to hire more people to do more. I'm quite sure that we can put a dent in it.
I think that's probably the lesson to take home tonight, is that we all need to do more. We need to attack this problem in a good way, a positive way, and there are things we can do to make it better.
Sure.
Thank you both for being here tonight. I think it was a fascinating discussion, and I'd love to go longer, but we're out of time. So I'm Jim Robertson, Jill Schlude, Lorenzo Lawson. Thank you for joining us. Good night.